system, and believing that when they vote, their vote will count. That is another. Then the most important aspect is that government touching the lives of the people. Because it's one thing to, people just believe that, once we elect them, they will go. We don't get to see them. We continue to see that there's no difference between the time a governor is elected for 4 years. That road that passes through your front of your house in your local government was not fixed. Your life has not improved in terms of water. You don't have water. The past 4 years, you don't have water in your area. The school, the secondary school in your local village or whatever, there's no improvement. Let us leave the issue of electricity, because you say, electricity is a federal thing. But you come to realize that the transformer that brings electricity to your community has been there for the past 2 years. They are not looking at the president. They are looking at the governor. He didn't fix it. So with all this mirage of this thing, then the question is, what is there for me? You may say they are selfish, but they are not selfish, because that's what we call dividends of democracy. If that dividend does not come in, the tendency for people to react and come out to vote for another set of people is very, very difficult. So what are the issues? First, we have to be able to build confidence. There must be a bit of confidence between the leaders and the various electorates. That's one. Then the other aspect also is that we must up our campaign, trying to enlighten the people on the needs. And this is not just about INEC now. The political parties are not doing enough. All you see them do, once there's election, they come to one stadium and one area and just have a one rally and they disappear. Not knowing that they have to go from... In the United States, election is a very serious matter. Where the politicians go, there's what is called door-to-door campaign. You must have seen it. Kamala Harris, was going from knocking, having people employed that were going from door to door, knocking, both the Democrats and the Republicans. You will see the presidential candidates on their own. You will see that they will appear, not this one that we do here, where you see them, it's only election, you see the wife of the presidential candidate who go and fry akara. This one that they used to do, or start going to burn, or eating agege bread, or drinking Milo. No, that is not their own style. You will see them, you see Donald Trump, that he went to an eatery. There was this, you remember? He was attending to customer. That is the trust. When you see a presidential candidate serving you tea, for goodness sake, that, in fact, that cup self, I will take it home as a souvenir. So those are the kind of, but the most important aspect that they touch lives. Because knowing that if they don't do it, in 4 years' time, they'll be voted out. And that is why the people take to it. But here, people believe that once a governor enters, he will stay there for the next 8 years. The possibility of voting out a governor in Nigeria is very, very difficult, if not for the courts. So what we need to do is make sure that we build back that confidence and make sure that our people have so much confidence in our electoral system. It happened in the 90s. I was in the 70s, in the 80s. I remember in 1979, I think I was in primary 6 or so, when we had is that Second Republic election? Second Republic election. I don't know how young you were. Yes, I don't want to get the days of MPP, UPN, MPN, GMPP, and PRP. You need to see as the election days. But we also got it a bit right. When it came to the presidential election that we voted Abiola, if you see the turnout at that particular election, was it not option A4?
Hope 93.
Hope 93.
Yes.
You will see the long queue from here to that gate where we're coming from. Because people had confidence. The person that is coming, they have so much trust and belief in the person. But now, as an average person in a local government, who is your House of Representative member in Abuja? He doesn't know. Who is your senator in the National Assembly? He doesn't know. Who is your member in the State House of Assembly? He doesn't know. Why? Because he feels that the person is distant from him. He cannot reach him. So even if an election comes tomorrow, he doesn't get. What people now vote, what we do in Nigeria, people vote for parties, not individuals any longer. And that is the dangerous part of it. So you just belong to one particular party, it's popular in your area, they go there and vote. But forgetting that it's not about the party, but the representative of that party. He is the one that's going to do the job. It's not the party that will do the job. Because even with all the manifestos that we have, the political parties, how many of them, when they get to office, implement those manifestos to the latter. That is the issue.
And okay, so big issues that you both have raised, but in terms of where we go from here, the people have cast their votes, and what next? If we bring back the U.S. example in the wake of their presidential election, we also saw that when it was already clear to everyone, Kamala Harris, made that call, conceding and acknowledging that yes, indeed, she had lost the keenly contested election. But is it a matter of the system, the INEX of this world that, makes the system so attractive and will not encourage voter apathy? We understand that maybe the voter turnout in America was about 60%, and it's also an equally vast country, just like Nigeria, or even more than Nigeria. But on whom will you put the onus of, sanitizing the matter or the mess here in Nigeria?
It is simply systemic. You just mentioned the case of the United States of America. Even when Trump was taken out of the White House, he attempted some political dramas, but the system resisted him. There was a breach of the Capitol, and the system said, no, Trump, you are a citizen, and this is a country that has a high respect for the rule of law. And what is the rule of law? The rule of law says that all citizens, irrespective of the office you occupy, and institutions are subject to the laws of the land. Is that what we have here? The answer is no. In fact, we have come to the point where the rule of law is almost a slave to the power brokers. And that is why you hear a honorable minister at the federal level saying that powerful people are behind illegal mining. So the provisions of Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office, has been rendered redundant by some powerful people. That is why you read about oil thieves who their vessels are arrested, but the personalities behind this theft are untouchables. Those are issues. So those are the results that you get. Because Kamala Harris herself knows that if you shout foul, you're going nowhere. And again, talking about the system, that was a Donald Trump that came from the Republican Party to unseat an incumbent leadership. And so that tells you something that the people have expressed themselves. Let's now come to how we can restore the confidence of the people. It's clearly stated in our Constitution. If you read Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. Have we scored a pass mark in terms of governance at the primary level? We are now talking about tertiary level and post-tertiary. So when you profile the welfare of the citizens today, according to the Minimum Wage Act 2024, minimum wage is 70,000 naira. Christmas is on the way. A bag of rice, local rice, is over 100,000 naira. The pump price of PMS, petroleum, is about 1,080 naira, depending on where you go. So you look at the inflationary rate, you look at the insecurity in the land, then you ask yourself, are people benefiting? In fact, as brilliantly mentioned by Mr. Chris, we make reference to dividends of democracy. Is it an investment that you are now talking about dividends? It's service to the people. Service. Service. Look at Singapore. Singapore left Malaysia in 1965 with little resources, but with strong vision. And between 1965 and where we are now, Singapore is one of the best places to live and to work in the world. Why? System. Meritocracy. There are the elements we call the 10 magics of Singaporean transformation. You see, now the country is battling with national grid collapsing. Do you know that the first electricity installation in Lagos was put in place in 1898, even before the amalgamation of 1914, before our political independence in 1960. And today, we are battling in that sector. So when people begin to see that the interest is about the people, why not? And talking about the interventions of the judiciary that he mentioned, which is also sacrosanct, let's use Ondo State as a test case. In 2003, late Agagu was the governor in Ondo State. In fact, he appointed Mimiko as his SSG. And in 2005, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo pulled Mimiko out to become the minister at the federal level. In 2007, Mimiko returned to contest he pulled out of PDP to come into Labour Party. And at the polls, Agagu won. You know, it was over a year in office, and Mimiko went to the tribunal, to the court. And interestingly, at that point in time, the appeal court was the highest level of intervention. And at the appellate level, I think July 2008, Mimiko won. And that took Agagu out of office. That is even the history of how Ondo State became one of the 8 states with off-cycle elections in the country. So more or less, and it is my personal perception, I think the democracy practice in Nigeria is not about service to the people. It's about service to the power brokers. You see, and that is what we are still dealing with now. However, when you have leaders who are wise, you leverage on the opportunities of being given the privilege of office to provide for the people. Irrespective of what anyone says, Nelson Mandela is a brand name globally. That name does not struggle in the space of golden recognition. So why don't you also? Because he also mentioned a vibrant point. It's not about the party. It's about the person. Right now in Nigeria, the party syndrome has been demystified. Nyesom Wike, that is currently the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, which party does he belong to? Is it PDP or APC? He has one leg in APC, one leg in PDP. But he is delivering. So when we come to the point of making political office holders accountable, look at the great minister from Akoko Northwest, right. Tunji, the Minister of Interior. He's doing very well. You know, so it's about service to the people. And I hope leadership in Nigeria will realize that you have a responsibility to serve the people. And when you serve the people, really, you know, all those benefits, we are allowing greed to push to us. We overtake you, and you have your name on the golden side of history. So, and that is what my advice is now to leadership. You know, somebody will win the elections in Ondo State. After you're winning, people are asking, what are we going to benefit? What are the basic amenities that should be provided? Right, but
well, it is a keenly contested, election, but then it's been peaceful so far. Okay, yes, we heard about the DSS arresting someone with big bags of cash and all of that. But do you foresee a bitter process even after now, talking about heading to the courts, disgruntled politicians or candidates heading to the courts? Is it going to be like the usual cycle we know of, or are you expecting some surprises? That from what we are seeing, we've talked about an improved INEC and all of that, we might just have congratulatory calls or messages across board.
When you have developed a system where everybody believes that I can get it through the courts, everybody will head to the courts. Because at the courts, you don't know what will happen. It is in this country that we saw a governor that came forth in an election, was declared the winner by the Supreme Court. Who in the world will ever believe that? Okay, let's even say the person that won the election, for whatever reason, his election was annulled. Of course, automatically, this person that came second will take it. He didn't go to the second person. He didn't go to the top person. The person that came fourth was. But my own is that What we're practicing in Nigeria currently is not democracy. What we are practicing is civilian rule. We've not gotten to the point of democracy. The day we hit democracy, as defined in that, as it was defined to us in our secondary school, it was very, very simple, which you have defined it, as it was defined to us, and which I, as a graduate of law, also read. What we are practicing is not, because what we are practicing is not something that where the people determine who rules them. It's not. And that is why I'm talking about confidence building. If you don't get people to build the confidence of people to believe in an action, not an election now, what makes a leader is for you to stand and the people can follow you blind that come whatever. It's like a driver. Most of when you are traveling and you are taking a public transport, the man that is going to drive that vehicle, you don't know him. You don't know his surname. You don't know which region of the country he came from. You don't even know how long he has been driving. But you know what?
Trust.
You have that trust that this guy will take you to your destination, and that is why you enter. And most often than not, he takes you to your destination, if not for any reason. So that is where the confidence. The day we'll be able to hit it, at the point at which people will now believe that, oh, no matter what, the person I think, and once that happens, anybody that loses such an election will congratulate the other, because he believes that it was. It has happened in this country. It happened in 2015.
2015.
It's not something. It's not skyrocket. It has happened in this country in 2015. We had an election where a sitting president lost, and what did he do? Even before they announced the result, the man picked the call. He said some people were telling him, including those very close to him, that I don't want to mention, we were telling, he picked the call and called. Even the man that won the election said, they have not arrived. He said, no, congratulations. Because he believed that system was fair. The election was fair. And you also know what happened in 2015. Because of what he did, go and check 2015 election. Litigation dropped. Litigations dropped to about 70%. A lot of people didn't go to court, even at the governorship level. So, coming back to what you're asking, if the result in Ondo is declared, it won't be declared today, definitely to be tomorrow, or hopefully. If it's declared tomorrow, and those that are lost, there are 17 of them that contested, and those that lost saw that they lost squarely, nothing will stop them from calling the winner and say, congratulations. For goodness sake, they are all from Ondo State. What purpose are they contesting for? Is it not to serve the people of Ondo State? You might say that the average Nigerian politician is one of the most selfish I've ever seen in the face of the globe.
Right.
And that is a fact. So it is good for us to tell ourselves this truth. Because tomorrow we'll still come back, wherever we're going again, ask yourself in Edo State, what was the percentage of the turnout? It's the same thing. It's across board. It's not just about Ondo. We are talking of Ondo now. Go and check that of Edo State. And what happened? It's almost the same thing. I don't think they crossed the 35% threshold in terms of total turnout. And you are talking of a state of about 1.7 million voters, and probably about 350,000 came out to elect a governor. Is that a true representation of the feelings and the yearnings of the voters? No, it is not.
All right, let's also look at some other aspects that we have seen playing out in this election, talking about security. And you both have, brought out historical perspectives to those states, the peculiarities in the UPN, MPN days. The historians will talk about, pockets of violence, how heated the period was. 30,000 or thereabouts security operatives in Ondo State. What's the assessment for you? Is that necessary? At least from the narrative you've seen, from the body language of the politicians before the election, and now that we are well in it, what do you make of the security outlook?
In an ideal environment, it was an unnecessary venture, mobilizing that retinue of security operatives because of election. Because there must be a budgetary allocation for that move. And for a country that is owing currently about 121 trillion naira, that spent about 84% of the inflow to service debt, I don't think that should make a lot of sense. But when you look at the fact that we have permissively groomed insecurity in the land, then there should be apprehension. Even with the presence of the policemen, the national defense, the military, we still have electorate apathy. So we now talk about when you tell the people you are on your own. So it's what we must work on. And what is the solution? Consequences. In this election going on in Ondo State, as peaceful as it's acclaimed to be, there has been a report of a vote-buying suspect arrested. What will happen to that suspect? By the grace of God, I'm a chief superintendent of police. And so, will it go beyond the fact, because in the criminal justice ecosystem, there are three strong pillars: thorough investigation, diligent prosecution, before a committed judiciary. So is it that that person caught with a huge amount of money will go away with the elections after the results and everything, and you hear nothing? And in industrial psychology, you call that reinforcement theory, because you are reinforcing vote buying. And so these are issues of the system.
Right.
A society that has laws that are not implemented is as bad as a society without laws. So those are issues. We have electoral laws against electoral offenses. How do we implement them? You know, in fact, in some of the things we have monitored today, you see people bringing cameras to where people are voting. I think the law does not even permit, the regulations rather, do not permit some of these practices. But because the higher amateur are involved, you see people flouting it. So those are issues. We must get serious as a nation. And it's a very simple thing to do. You ask yourself, so how did America achieve the kind of election that was held that did not shut down any state because of election, that people were still going about their businesses? The UK had an election on the 4th of July, 2024. I'm sure many Nigerians did not even know. An election that moved the incumbent out of office. And I'm not reading that somebody is in court or whatever. So we need a system that reverses the impression that politics is a high-yield investment in Nigeria. And I think we need to work on that. I mean, just sit back. In fact, some of the ministers in Nigeria have told the young ones, why are you running out of Nigeria when you can wake up in 1 week and become certain billionaires? How? By coming into politics. It's obvious. You know, so peradventure, we come to the point that we are like Netherlands, that your being a honorable minister does not entitle you to 4 SUVs
of office
and 5 security
personnel.
That the prime minister rides on a bike to the king's palace and things like that. Then, because I think that is distinguishing factor, then we can begin to reverse some of these characteristics.
All right, let's take a breather now. We'll continue with our analysis and reportage on the Ondo governorship election. In the meantime, we'll take a break now. We also like to inform our viewers on our sister channel, TVC, that we will be pulling out. But, of course, the program continues across our other platforms. So please don't stay away. Join us again when we return. Stay with us.
So good to win in the Cowbell So Creamy So Good promo with 150 million naira worth of cash and loads of free airtime up for grabs. To stand a chance to win, simply buy 10 sachets of Cowbell 12 gram or 1 Cowbell 320 gram refill pouch. Submit the empty packs to any collection center near you and exchange the sachets for a scratch card. Scratch the card to reveal a unique code and text the code to 1393 to enter the draw. Promo runs from October to November 2024. For more info, visit www.cowbell.ng. Terms and conditions apply. Cowbell, a creamy goodness.
I will never shed one tear for any broke island bachelor.
I just she have not shown sign of settling down.
Oh, you don't mean it. How about to deliver Isabel?
I might have a solution.
You take this and spray it twice. Shake the gem. Place it on your lips and say the magic word.
Yes. Medusa, I'm worried about you. Why don't you settle down? See how stupid and dumb you sound?
You, my darling, are unlucky in life.
At wedding, you must not cook jollof. You can eat small chops.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Ondo Decides 2024, showing on TVC News. We thank you very much for keeping us company. So we've been at it since about 6:30, even way before that. And we're still very much on course in bringing you all the cogent information that you need in terms of reportage, analysis, insights, and more as fallout from the Ondo governorship election. Chris Kende Wando and Jide Ologun are here with us. They've been bringing us, contributions, insights as active stakeholders in the electoral process in Ondo State. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for staying with us. So, Chris, voter inducement was, even before Saturday, was a key narrative of this election in Ondo State. It got at a point, the PDP was even saying, was quoted as urging its supporters to collect whatever they are given. We heard that there was fertilizers available, there was cash, food crops, and all of that. We heard on reports that PDP told its supporters collect, but no, vote us. And then even today we've seen voters also speaking about, yes, there was cash at hand. Yaga also said something that also formed a part of their initial assessment. Please, what do you make of this? Is this a lost cause? It was a question we asked at the earlier panel, but what do you think in terms of, is this something we can really address?
Yes, it's something we can address, but first and foremost, we have to address the issue of poverty, because that is what is breeding all this. An average man that cannot find money to buy just bread, if giving 55,000 naira, can do anything. And that is it. And that is where we find ourselves. But let me just quickly talk on the last topic we were discussing, and that is the issue of security. I need to commend our security agencies, sincerely. In the past, just like it happened in Edo State, and also it happened in Ondo State, we've not seen any serious skirmishes on the part of the police. They'll be able to live up to expectation, not only police, other security agencies, the DSS, because like the video I saw today, we're talking about the inducement of voters. The person with the 2 Ghana must go money was arrested by the DSS, not even the police.
Or EFCC.
Not the EFCC, it was DSS. I've seen the video. And probably some people must have tipped them off. They cornered the guy and asked him to open his boot. He didn't want to open it. They forced him to open his boot. And they saw the two Ghana must go. He was asked and they was taken away. So those are the collaborative efforts we want from our security agencies. If they have that collaborative effort within themselves, then taking that forward in other aspects of insecurity in the land, we'll be making headway. Because the problem we've always had in the past, various security agencies working at crossroads with each other and not be able to, you understand, work in cooperation and be able to deliver. So for that, and I also agree with him that we don't need to demilitarize a state just because we want to. Why it is easier is because these are obstacle elections, just one state. If we're going to have election in 360, in 36 states, and all the 774 local governments, how many policemen are we going to deploy? How many policemen do we have? So that is it. So if we try to de-emphasize this issue of inducing people, making it look violent, and making sure that the process is free and fair, we will not need policemen that many. And that is what happened. We've seen it in one of the states where an election was, local government election was held. And the police said they will not participate. And the state went ahead and had the election, and it was very, very peaceful, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So those are the issue for me. So coming back to the issue at stake, inducement has become a big challenge. And it didn't start now. It started from way back when we were kids. I remember in those days where you come to vote and you are given a loaf of bread, agege bread. In those days, I'm a Lagos boy. They give you, before you are going to the state, don't tear that agege bread anyhow. I'm warning you. If you tear that agege bread, you are going to tear money. Because 1 naira has been put in between the bread that we are being given and strategically placed. So when you collect the agege bread, you have collected your own portion of the distance. But the question you have to ask yourself, in your true conscience, if you collect 5,000 naira, can you multiply that 5,000 across 4 years? What is going to do for you? If you dare vote for somebody who ought not to be there. Most people say, oh, let me collect my own. After all, I won't see them next 4 years. It is not just that 5,000 you collect. You have collected the constituency project that are supposed to be brought to your locality. The water that you're supposed to have, that the person is supposed to put in your community, you've collected it. The good road and other infrastructure. So that is why we try as much as possible. But the politicians have learned and have using the instrument of poverty to now make sure that Nigerians, our people, buy their vote. Not only what they do also. When you vote, there's this tendency that they try to show their the party or whatever they vote for, so that it can be captured, because some of them have not given you that money. It's after you've showed and you voted, when you are going out, you must deliver before they do. And let me tell you how it happened. That's why the guy that was carrying Ghana must go must be foolish, because they've gone tech now. What they do is they collect your bank details. Yes, they collect your details and just do them. There's a POS there, and they do transfer. That is how to the level to which we have gone to. But now, what the Nigerian politicians does, if he's preparing for election, he's also preparing money to buy votes, and we must discourage that. My only problem is that most often than not, our security agencies just arrest the person that is distributing. The big boy in the house that gave him that money to go and distribute, nothing happens to him.
Okay, so
what happens if I get you with about, if you have 1 million naira, somebody must have given you that money. Who is the person? That is the people we should go in after. The politicians, not just the person that have come to just distribute.
Okay, and what about the taker now? Because there is so much talk about the parties giving, but the people collecting. In fact, Giaga went on to say that there were some disgruntled voters who say, like, Chris painted the picture of that the party would say, we want to see the evidence that you voted for us.
Yes.
But then, according to Giaga, the candidate of the voter presented the evidence that he or she voted.
Some go with their phone to snap
and
it.
at the end of the day, wasn't given the amount promised, and that was even how the matter, the matter became exposed. That okay, so but you promised and we've done it. Now you're giving me half of what you promised. So this is such a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, and deliberately activated by some of the dealers. I refuse to call them leaders, because I watched a documentary of Sheikh Zayed, the founding father of the modern UAE, and he was making reference to leadership. And he said one vital point he mentioned, that wealth is not money for developing people. That is why he decided to engage the oil wealth of the UAE, United Arab Emirates, to develop the people through provision of education, infrastructure, to create a wealth magnet that is attracting foreign direct investments into that environment. And today, it's an autopilot experience. He is late, you know. His 100 years posthumous birthday, I think, was to be in 2018 or thereabout. Which is different from a society that is driven by palliative mentality, which is even an insult to the citizens. I just give them 5,000 naira. And I don't know how far 5,000 naira can carry anybody now. I grew up in the Ologun family, where the family concept was this wise concept of teaching someone to fish rather than giving the person fish. And I give God the glory for that family. We've never had to quarrel over property or anything, because my parents had 10 children. I'm the last of them all. And that education was given to all. And I grew up to realize that even my father's house was too small to contain me, so I didn't even bother moving in that direction. And I think that is what we should begin to realize in this country. Look at your citizens. We are talking about the Lakurawas now, the alleged new terrorists. Well, someone is saying they have been there. So for how long? You have the Almanjiris, and a wise man said, a rich man in the community of the poor is the poorest of all. And that is why, if you have been monitoring, even General Abdulsalami, retired, a former head of state, screamed on the hardship in the land and warning. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo just came out to warn Nigeria that these out-of-school children are easy recruits for terrorists. So we need to look at all this. And for those who are collecting, whether you are buying votes or selling your vote, it's crime. But to what extent do we deal with crime in this land? We just woke up to read about the story of the Ministry of Poverty, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. It's now poverty reduction. How billions of naira disappeared. Until now, the worst of penalties that has been rolled out on that gate is just suspension and easy removal from office. You compare that with the experience of Ekweremadu in the UK, where the UK government said, oh, welcome to UK, honorable in Nigeria, that we are against modern slavery and organ trafficking. And by virtue of the fact that our investigation has confirmed you committed that crime, we are derobing you of your honorable status to say, know this about the UK, we have zero tolerance for this crime. And I think that is where we are in the country. I've been asking the question. In this case of the new terrorist group in South Koto State, I understand about 3 of them were taken out. And as a police officer, I know that when you take someone out, you can profile that person, do DNA, trace that person to some sponsors. All right? We've heard of badges used to steal our crude oil being arrested. And so they don't have registration numbers. The other time, my good brother Olukoyede was telling us that if we know what is going on in the energy sector, we will cry. And I said, we will not cry. I will not be one of those crying. Let the enemies of this nation cry. And that contractors were using substandard materials. And I know, as a lawyer, as a project executor and things, that a contractor must have an agreement of terms and conditions must have an office, have a phone number, have agents and things like that. So you cannot claim you have ghost contractors that you cannot trace. So if there is any substandard service rendered to a whole nation, you can go after them. Let them come and render account. But when we look away, you reinforce crime. And that is where we are in Nigeria today. And we must deal with it because people are fast losing, that capital trust is fast being eroded. And I think that is why leadership should now begin to refocus and move beyond these palliative interventions and things like that and see how we can re-energize our economy and give people meaningful sense of belonging, sense of patriotism. The nation is so low now when there are many beggars out there, seeking for how to make ends meet. So these are issues. So leadership should be a subject that is revived for those who have the privilege of office now to begin to engage, to deliver good governance. Otherwise, one day you will leave office. It's only God that will not leave office. We are talking here about Chief Olusegun Agagu, his of blessed memory. Chief Adekunle Ajasin of the Second Republic of blessed memory. Even Mimiko that is still alive. In the political terrain, he is not as prominent as he used to be. And that is the story of life. You've read about Jim Nwobodo, different governors of old. So please, now that is your turn. What can you do for the people? Right. And that is why I'm speaking to leadership. You see, Ondo State is so wealthy in terms of resources. You must have heard that the second largest deposit of bitumen in the whole world is in Nigeria. Part of it is in Ondo State. It's an oil region. We have different kinds of resources. But again, if you look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. The resources of this country are under the management of the federal government. So the sub-nations are not really benefiting. So the National Assembly should look into that. No state should be poor in Nigeria, talking about the people. We are exorbitantly blessed. And these are issues that should begin because elections victory will come now. Everybody, the police will return, the military will return to base. And I pray they will get to base safely because some who came to Edo State from Kano and lost their lives in the course of the journey. So I learned. So these are issues so that we don't have this repeated drama of elections coming up. How are the people benefiting from the election? So
absolutely.
Those are my submissions in the interim.
All right. Okay. So time is fast racing. So Chris, 2 days or thereabouts the election, we're speaking with the Labour Party candidate, the then Labour Party candidate, and he was saying the contest is essentially between APC and the Labour Party because in his explanation, PDP, the candidates for the PDP were running mates, or would I say deputies to the late Aketi, Rotimi Akeredolu, especially Agbola Ajayi, and all of that. So he said he doesn't see a contest between the APC and the PDP, but essentially between the Labour Party and the APC. How is it looking like for you? Do you see it as something that will be too close to call? Are you foreseeing surprises somewhere? What do you make of the dynamics of this particular polls?
Well, when we started, I was talking about stakeholders. He's from Ondo. And fortunately, I'm also happy that I'm also from Ondo, but not as Ondo as he is.
But you have a stake.
I have a stake because my mother is from Ondo State. So we are all stakeholders. Ondo is a state I hold so much, have so much regard for. And sincerely, with all sense of humility, I will say that the last real governance I noticed in Ondo State, that's my personal opinion, was during the day of Mimiko as the governor. Because I visited the state that period. Probably that's the last time I visited. I don't know what has happened in the last 8 years or whatever. And I went to certain key projects that defined governance. That is for me. Let us even, if it's only health that you take, in the whole of Nigeria, I don't think that any governor implemented the kind of health policy that You will agree with me?
Yes.
That Olusegun Mimiko did. Pregnant women.
Mother and child.
Mother and child. I've always said that you don't need to touch every aspect of human life. Take a certain portion. Deliberately work on it. I was taken to most of those mother and child. Do you know what happened then? I was shocked that there were women, pregnant women, from my state of Imo, in Akure, pregnant women that came it wasn't for only on those state people. That was what I realized. Pregnant women who couldn't afford to pay for their pregnancy came all the way from the southeast to Akure, and they delivered free, and they were kept there for a certain period. He did that. Mimiko did that. And I'm sure he must have. I was taken to, there is this new university, medical university, I don't know the name now, one university of medicine that established, either in Dore or one of those places, you know.
University of Medical Science.
Yes, University of Medical Science. And you see the kind of equipment that were in that. Probably he did that as a medical doctor. Maybe that was why he focused on health. So he can understand medicine, he can understand. The kind of equipment I saw there, I never saw it in other part of it. That was it. I saw in this past week, what we should be talking about now, whoever is coming in as the governor, what are his visions? What are the things he wants to do to improve the life of Ondo State people? That is what I'll be much interested in. Now, talking about, for me, whether we like it or not, is a two-way. It is a two-way contest. It's between the APC and the PDP. Even the Labour Party, the person that was talking, I don't know which one now, because as of yesterday...
That's why I said the then...
That's what I'm saying now. So the person that said it now, I don't even know whether he was on the ballot. Right. So the Labour Party had a very, very divided house.
And that was a major failure.
Of course, it's a major... Yes, it's going to affect them seriously. So it's between the two former... I'll take it. It is between the two former deputy governors. I'm not putting the current governor as a governor. The two deputy governors who also serve the same master. Exactly. Because the candidate of Mr. Agbola, the candidate of the PDP, was the former deputy governor to Agere.
The same boss.
So this same one. So they are from the same family, and that is why I believe that which of them loses, I think they should be cordial enough to be able to hug each other. They stay within the house. But I don't know what the outcome is going to be. But it's a two-way. But my own concern is that the Ondo State people, how will they benefit? Will governors stop after the election? Because what happens is that, especially when governors get a second time, they don't accelerate any longer. They don't perform. There are only few governors that you see that after their first time, come second time, they continue with the same. What they now start doing is success, or who is going to succeed them.
Exactly.
And what they're going to amass to themselves and keep in their banks, pending what they're going to use to fight the EFCC when they leave. So my own concern and my own belief is that let INEC do the needful and make sure whoever the people voted for is announced, irrespective of the political party. We're still having an issue with what's happening in Edo State. I will want to see a day where we have a governorship election in Nigeria, where no other political party will want to go to court to contest that election.
All right, but then I wonder what the practicing lawyers will have to say about that.
No, for us, because it's my profession as well. Of course, we'll be happy.
Right, and we've seen the day. We've seen it before, as you have said.
No. We always say whenever we have election, of course, you know that the lawyers are only smart.
Law is diverse.
It's very diverse.
Several income generating.
Yeah. Absolutely, but litigation, we all know how it all most of the time ends up in court.
But you see, for elections, it's time bound, so it's not like cases. I understand that the case has been attended to in the Supreme Court now. Basically, it should be a case of about 2009 or thereabout. So we have the backlogs. But for electoral matters, it's on the expressway.
It is time bound.
But I gave this warning: lawyers don't lose cases, clients do. So for those politicians, they should be careful how they respond to the final results.
All right, and okay, so Ekiti, Ondo, I should say, is, you know, that's one of the unique states that have had governors from at least 3 of the parties that are participating in this election, Labour Party, the PPP, the APC. But in terms of your expectation as a stakeholder, Mr. Ologun, and, what happens now? Okay, so 2 deputy governors or 2 SWA deputy governors are in the race, but like the big question is, what is it for the people? As you know, as the final segment, as your final words in this segment, what are your thoughts?
As a matter of personal opinion, I foresee the incumbents remaining in office. And that's why I'm addressing my council that please occupy that office, be your best, and give your best. Remembered for serving the people, particularly for young politicians who are still ambitious to climb up in the environment of leadership in the country. And the resources are there, so be creative. And talking about the fact that the 2 of them were deputy governors. Yes, Agbola was deputy governor to Akeredolu. They fell out. That was what brought in Lucky Ayedatiwa. And Agbola has been to 2 parties now. He was in one party, he couldn't clinch the victory. He moved to PDP, now contesting. And like I said earlier, which is important in politics, Ayedatiwa, has been able to weather the storm and keep the party together. I mean, right now, his running mate, the deputy governor, is from the Owo jurisdiction, where the late Akeredolu, who passed on, is from. And Owo people, they've endorsed his candidacy. So, but then for politicians, you must remain visible. And I want to associate the position of PDP and Labour Party to that. And again, like I mentioned earlier, for those who study opposition impact in politics, the Ondo State politics of 2024 has witnessed a very low opposition velocity. Let me put it that way. So,
all right. Well, our time is up, at least for this segment, but a very insightful one. If I can judge, I must thank you all, you both, I should say, Jide Ologun and Chris Kehinde Nwandum. It's really been very engaging with you both, and we will indeed see how it all pans out in the end, how it all adds up, especially now that voting has ended, and over now all attention will now be on the state capital, Akure, for the rest of the electoral process. And that's it from my end as well. I want to thank you all for keeping us company. Chris Kehinde Nwandum will be leaving as well. Thank you very much. Mr. Jide Ologun will still be very much on ground with my colleagues.
I'll hold brief for him.
And you are definitely capable, Mr. Ologun. So Precious Amayo and Samson Oloyede will come on air now to continue with our exclusive, our special coverage of the Ondo governorship election. From all of us here, thanks a lot for keeping us company, and stay with TVC News.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw ether material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move weigh in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Hello, TVC Communications. How can I help?
What makes TVC the right choice for my business?
Excellent question, sir. Let me share some exciting facts with you.
Start your day on TVC Entertainment with Wake Up Nigeria, a family and lifestyle show. Your view empowers women globally.
It's your view, let it count.
Entertainment Splash delivers the hottest celebrity trends. On TVC News, we keep you informed with breaking news and in-depth analysis of events shaping the world.
I will continue to speak the truth.
TVC News at 7 and TVC News at 10 p.m. delivers the most important stories of the day. Max FM, your hit music radio station, captivates listeners daily across Lagos and Abuja, making every commute more enjoyable. Adaba 88.9 FM is not left out, as it is the voice of Southwest. And on TVC Digital, we reach to million viewers daily. All together, pulls in over 17 million viewers daily. Contact us on 0707-272-8338 or marketing at tvccommunications.tv. Partner with TVC Communications today.
All right, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Ondo Decides on TVC News. We've been covering the election there. That's the gubernatorial election in Ondo State. We have reporters on ground bringing us updates bit by bit. We've gotten a lot of reports, whether on voter turnout, whether on security, INEC's conduct in this particular election. And so we're going to be doing more of that even in this segment. We'll still have our guest in the studio, but I'm Precious Abayo and I'm joined by my colleague.
Samson, it's always good to do this, especially concerning, the civil rights of the citizens in terms of electing their leaders. I think we've seen a very good example from the Ondo indigents in terms of the turnout and the peaceful conduct thus far, and it's quite impressive to say the least.
Maybe not in terms of turnout, maybe in terms of the conduct of the election. It's been peaceful, you're right, but in terms of turnout, people have said this is even I think from the feedback we've been getting, especially from the election observers who are in that state, saying that it is quite low, higher in some areas than in some other areas, but generally not as impressive as they would have expected it to be. But at least, people came out of it, which is the good thing. But let's continue the conversation with a guest in the studio. You already know him, a lawyer, and we found out recently that he's also a superintendent of police. Junior Logu. So now I know who to be calling. From time, I won't break the law, but when a need arises, I will just give you a call. So I need help in this particular area. No. Thank you for staying with us. But people will say that it's a masquerade. I'm going with the African proverb now. A masquerade that would dance well. It's from the first step that you would know. But I want us to look at this. I know we've talked about this in light of assessment, in light of a Edo State election. Let's now do because other elections held this year as well. Other off-cycle elections, whether it was Bayelsa, we had Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi on the same day. Anambra also had off-cycle election. Is it getting better, by your assessment, or there are still lapses?
Yeah, from what we have today, better, because extensively, though it appears we've moved beyond that, post-voting time in the Edo election, some issues came up about the location of collation, the conduct of the announcements of the results and things like that, and that were not pleasant to report. But I think right now the governor has been sworn in, and I doubt if the party that lost out, talking about PDP, is willing to patronize the judiciary. But in the case of Ondo State, so far so good today. I think we are now at the crucial moment that due attention in Edo State, which is the post-voting window. So it's now, let's see how the results will be collated and then announced. But we understand some of those results were being uploaded to the IREV. And let's also point out that the IREV does not determine a victory in election. The IREV is just like a warehouse where you back end your results for consultation purposes. So, but I think in terms of logistics and some of the...
All right. Let me just put you on hold for a minute. Samson, let's talk about issues around, he was talking about, the off-cycle elections. And so when you look at the energy, because a lot of CSOs have talked about, whether election observers as well, that the energy during off-cycle elections and general elections perhaps contribute to the voter turnout. Whether people decide to turn, because it's general, knowing that your state is voting, my state is voting, the media concentrates on the entire nation compared to when it's just one state or two states. And perhaps, just because it's a state also affect the voter turnout.
Definitely. We know quite well that the atmosphere is always, charged up when it's a general election, either for, the senatorial or the lawmakers, as it were now, and, the presidential elections. Everyone is eager to chip in and, have their candidates get into office. Unlike the off-cycle elections, it's seemingly out of, the order, as it were, when it comes to election calendars and cycles. So there is that apathy, you want to see, from, voters. But nonetheless, I think we've also seen instances where the turnout has also been high. You have to take into consideration different factors that will influence voter apathy when it comes to off-cycle elections. So there's the place of the candidates in place now. How popular are they? What are the pressing issues in that state? And how politically inclined are the youths of those states? Because we know quite well that the youths would definitely form the base of the voters in terms of numbers. They have the larger numbers. So there's a whole lot really when it comes to off-cycle elections in terms of factors. I think for, Ondo State, for example, yes, off-cycle, it's probably a bit more stability because the incumbent has been there for several months now. So maybe less, reactions or charged up atmosphere in terms of people chipping in and just excited about it, as it were.
All right, so I want to get back to you, Mr. Didi Olugu. The same issue that Samson was talking about, whether or not, when you gauge the public sentiment and engagement during general elections and off-cycle elections, what you make of both of them.
It makes little difference. From my observation, we have segmentation. There are citizens who believe that election time is carnival for them. At least something will come from these politicians. Whether it will take them for another 4 years is a different question. And there are those who are just there, not necessarily because they need something from the politicians, but the fact that, my party must win. If it's a matter of incumbency, my party must return. If it's a matter of opposition, my party must take over. And we have the third category who are not just interested. In fact, some of them are likely to have resumed in a gym, to work out, return home by midday. They have the time, monitor on the TV, go for their evening engagement, particularly when this an off-cycle election is not across the nation. So for the people in Ondo State, some of them may be excited, but for many, young ones playing football on the streets and things like that. And again, it touches on our patriotism and the level of trust that the citizens have for the processes, and the fact of asking this question, that can we claim that elections in Nigeria are fair, credible, and transparent as expected by the global benchmark? So these are issues that affect the elections. And for many, even those who have gone out there to vote, they are waiting for the announcement, because whether we agree or not, INEC remains the referee here, because by virtue of the Electoral Act, it is the final announcement from INEC that determines who the winner is. After that, if you are not accepting it, you head to the tribunals. So those are the major stakeholders. And by and large, we must commend the security agencies for having come around to play their roles, even though some of us look forward to the time when elections in Nigeria will not even require 3 hours shutdown. As against this whole day shutdown of businesses. And that is when we would have come to the point of it being to elect personalities to serve the people and not to come and benefit from the people. So those are my observations.
Okay, I think he has also, mentioned something important, which is the fact that those are not, involved politically because they do not trust the process. And then it begs the question, how do we restore trust into the process, especially when it comes to not just the conduct, but also, sorting, counting, collation of results and all of that. Again, that would also depend on how strong our laws are, that those who would say that we have the laws in place, it's all about the implementation. That's where the bane of the issue is. For whatever side of the divide one stands in terms of be it the law not being strong enough or the implementation, there is the need to strengthen our electoral process to ensure that it is not only transparent and credible, but it is also able to gain the trust of the people. That way we would have a drastic reduction in folks who have that apathy towards electoral processes, really.
One of the things that people have also talked about in this, we've seen that in off-cycle elections, even in states, is the issue of zoning. I've had the privilege of speaking with people, across political parties in this particular election. And one of the things, when you mention a particular candidate, to the opposition, you hear them say, well, he's my brother. I am not going to say this about him. And then you talk to the other candidate where you hear, oh, well, he's my brother. Does that also contribute in the peaceful process, that zoning, when people feel like we're from the same area? Does that contribute to the peaceful process that we see?
We call that cultural affinity, and it's natural with man, And there was a time I was engaging a former governor in a conversation, and I suggested to him that, Your Excellency, rather than these geopolitical zones that we have in Nigeria, why don't you upgrade it? I mean, use your good office to drive that process to geo-economic zones. Let the economy drive that syndrome, not the politics. Yeah, he listened to me, but, not much came out of that, because I can say boldly that an average Nigerian politician is more interested in politics than the economic side of office. And that could have been beautiful, because we need to come to the point where it's no longer about he is my person, but what can he deliver to the citizens? As far as I am concerned, I've asked this question. Are the oil thieves in Nigeria from the same ethnic group? The answer should be no. All right? So we must look at the development of the nation as a whole. But from some statistics we gathered and monitoring the government environment, we've come to a conclusion that it may be more of political interest than governance interest. I was on a TV show, where Senator Kalu spoke, and he spoke clearly that in the National Assembly, the Senate in particular, that they are one. There's no ethnicity, and I agreed. When we were discussing the issue of SUVs for senators, did any party come out to say, we will not accept this SUV because of the economic situation? They all accepted it. You see, in fact, within the process of being in that hollow chambers, some of them crossing carpet Because for them, it's about remaining relevant. In fact, Uzo Kalu was saying it, that he has left his business. So what? Because he was being asked that, do you still have the intention of returning to Senate? He said he has left his business, that this is the business I know now. So those are issues. It's now for the electorate to also begin to demand accountability. But one of the guests on this show today raised a vital point. How many of the electorate even know the people they are voting for in terms of personal accomplishments, beyond the fact that, oh, I'm queuing behind this party? And if you don't drive it to that corner, you may not be able to know what you can get out of that politician who is going to represent you. And I think these are issues because there are levels of interest in politics. You have the national interest, if we are talking about the global approach. You have the party's interest. You have the personal interest. But the strongest of all is the personal interest. And permit me to use a brilliant example. You know Mr. Bwala, who was the spokesperson of Atiku, and vehemently so, suddenly, he shifted ground and came to be speaking well of our President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, whom I respect so much, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we just read, and I hope that news is not declared as fake news, that he has been given an appointment. Even if that of Bwala has not been fully established, because in the media space, you have to wait for about 2 weeks for confirmation.
But wouldn't that be him just returning to his old party, just to deviate? I mean, it's
the same thing we are saying. Personal interest. Look at Wike. Wike rose up in Rivers State, in PDP, and said, I'm not going to support my presidential candidate, my party's president. And he stood by it, the G5 from the PDP. In fact, Wike went to the extent that he visited some states and did not support the PDP governorship candidate in those states. I can make reference to Edo State. He told him point clear, don't bring me in. In Lagos State, he also told the candidate, you are on your own. These are issues. So it's not that the vigor is not there in the political environment. It's there. Nigeria should be one of the most vibrant, and should boast of the most vibrant political platform in the whole world. But for whose interest? For whose interest? We are talking about laws here. I mentioned it earlier. Look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. 3 assignments for the National Assembly to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of Nigeria. I expected that as soon as somebody made a statement from the executive arm of government, that we have identified about 400 sponsors of Boko Haram, the National Assembly should even shut down and say, if you don't bring them out, count us out as part of this governance system. But what do you say? So those are issues. In fact, in Nigeria today, we are still debating whether a special advisor on security is a sponsor of banditry. So these are issues. It has to be about the people, the economy, everything. And that's why we keep driving the advocacy that government should have a full grasp of the essence of leadership. In Switzerland, I think the interest rate in Switzerland is about 3.7% or thereabout, single digit. And we are talking about 27.5 in Nigeria. In 2014 or thereabout, one of my vacations to the US, I recall that dollar was about 150 naira. So to get $1,000, I only needed 150,000 naira. All I did was to walk to the bank. Within 30 minutes, I was through with my BTA. Today, to grab $1,000, I need 1.7 million naira. It should give the National Assembly members sleepless nights. Why am I focusing on them? Because they are the one representing the constituencies in the nation. We have 109 senators, 360 House of Reps members. And they had the power to make the laws, to amend the laws, and to carry out oversight functions. So these are issues, because my concern is that when those state election will go, a winner will be announced. How does the society move forward? I was privileged to be in the studio in 2011 of a national radio station when Goodluck Ebele Jonathan became the president. And I can recall my statement in 2011 that this is electoral victory. When are we going to have governance victory, which is the victory for the people? So these are issues. And let me say this. The insecurity of one is the insecurity of all. So the best we can achieve is to create a nation that offers the majority of citizens the governance, comfort, and safety deserved. Otherwise, when you come out of office, you are coming out to that society. And those are my concerns. And that's why I'm also echoing my expectations that whoever emerges as the governor of Ondo State, even though, like I said earlier, as a forecast that it should be the incumbency, please, don't join the train of those who will say this is my second term. Not at all. Be your best and do your best. Be remembered for solving some of the major problems in society and not complicating the problems. And these are what we need in Nigeria. You know, we have a barrage of issues in these countries to resolve, but politicians will only focus first on their interests and make the interests of the people secondary. But the people also should engage them on the scale of accountability to say, no, sovereignty still belongs to the people, not just a mere statement in the Constitution, which you can find in Section 14 of the Constitution.
Okay, let's talk about what you said just a few minutes ago about the kind of candidates we have. That more often than not, people do not elect candidates based on what they've accomplished, personal accomplishments among others that you just said. The question would be, is it really about the people's choices now when it comes to these candidates or the candidates fielded by the parties? So, for example, if the candidates presented by the parties do not meet up with the threshold or the standards that the electorates would expect of their leader, they are still split with the choices presented by the parties. So it then raises the question, is it really about deciding on who the party presents, or some of the electorates, we know everyone can be involved in politics, but some of them should also get involved in politics from the grassroots, talking about the world level, because the change we seek has to be from the world level all the way to the top.
Fantastic. And that brings us to the issue of primary. And like you rightly mentioned, it starts from there. And at the primary level, it's about delegates who we assemble and choose the candidates to go and represent. And there are two templates there, a direct or indirect, at the discretion of the party, subject to the constitution of the party. And there are judicial decisions in line with the laws that at that level is the party, is a family affair. And now, I totally agree with you that those who are interested in the change should get involved at that level. And that's why I mentioned earlier that some electorates don't even know who is representing them. And you can conduct a research, random sampling. Just go out there on the street, stop about 7 persons. What's the name of your councillor in your ward? You don't know. What we read today is that out of the 18 local governments in Rivers State, for instance, 17 has gone to APP, and this one, or NPP, or whatever. Those are issues. So you find the parties driving the processes. And I have also mentioned party loyalty. But having said that, we recently enjoyed a new dimension in Nigeria, where party interest subsided for personal interest. And I will use the case study of Rivers State, where even though Wike has always been a strong force in PDP, he delivered the state vote of PDP to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of APC, even though he delivered to PDP governorship candidate. So these are possibilities. But why could he do that? Because he's a powerful force. And some political analysts now came in to bring the third aspect of political interest, which is personal. To say he did that because he could not clinch the ticket of presidency at the primary, because he was interested in coming out to become the next president under PDP in Nigeria. He didn't do that. You recall that the likes of Tambuwal at the last moment stepped down. So politics is highly unpredictable. And I said, okay, if you think you are smart there, the G5, the 5 governors came together, and even the governor, the former governor of Benue State, lost his state. You know, he was not. Anyway, let's leave that. So you see them in their circle, focusing more on building political influence at the expense of national development. And I can be quoted on that. I was responding to the issue of the local government elections in Rivers State. Rivers State is the second richest state in the nation. You see, so why do you mention poverty? I've spoken about enforcing our laws. Even the former governor of Rivers State, Wike, came out to challenge some top-profile personalities for being behind bunkering and things like that. But will the long arms or short arms of the law go after them? So these are issues, and that is why there is a need for stakeholders' engagement between the elected and the electorate, and ask the big question. So what happens to the project Nigeria? Right now, we are talking about having mortgaged our crude oil in exchange for loans. I was reading somewhere that we may be going after about 28 trillion additional loans when we are already at about 121 right now. And I recall that in March 2015, the total indebtedness of Nigeria was about 12.12 trillion naira. And today it's about 121 trillion naira, you see. And yet, our refineries, the 4 refineries, moribund. And going into that sector as part of governance expectations and deliverables, the first refinery in Nigeria was inaugurated in 1965. So these are various issues. So at one point, our leaders come together and say, it's now about Nigeria. Let's make Nigeria.
And that's where, in fact, that's the very next point, because where we are now in Ondo election is the critical point where leaders decide whether it's for the people or for themselves. The point where we start to see voices raised, party agents saying, I will not sign, or I signed, or I signed on that durex. That's the point where we are now. It's always about the coalition. People will say, and I've heard, even you have said it earlier today, that look, things can be calm during the voting process, but once it gets to coalition, is where people start to point accusing fingers. What do you expect from INEC in terms of how it conducts itself going forward, especially during coalition?
The word of God says righteousness exalts a nation, and sin is a reproach to a people. So if indeed INEC means well for Nigeria, do what is right. I said that you leave office one day. Somebody made reference to the fact that the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, did not go to court. But some of us know what happened. You recall that was when this issue of peace accord came and the foreign powers were involved and everything, and they made this man to sign, and then he looked at it that, okay, I don't want trouble. Even when some candidates already threatened as far back as 2011 that if he did not win, he will soak the baboons and the dogs in blood. He says, well, these are issues. We should have a system that will tame people like that. I said it. Who is concerned about insecurity in Nigeria? When in 2013, and it's documented, we call it content analysis, the former President Muhammadu Buhari was addressing the media, and he stated clearly that clampdown on Boko Haram was injustice to the North. You see? Making reference to the Niger Delta issue. So when those who are expected to be leaders are biased and seeing instrument of insecurity as weapon of political influence, then we should be worried. So now when we talk about bandits, is it not in this country that some frontline personalities went to take photographs with bandits with sophisticated weapons? Is it not in this country that we bought Tucanos? Where are the Tucano jets today? You know, is it not in the same country that the bandits brought down a fighter jet? So several issues. So leadership must be awake to the responsibility of securing the livelihoods of the citizens. So those are issues. So, and that is why I still believe it's about power game, and it should not be.
Well, does this apply to the politicians? Because we're talking about INEC in terms of how it conducts, itself. Does it also apply to the politicians? Because it's the politicians who will usually hit up the polity, and while coalition is ongoing. We saw in Edo State election, it was the former governor, now the former governor, who went straight to the collation center to sit down there, even just staying there. He being the governor, that sends a message because you have your supporters, and that could have led to something else. And so how should the politicians themselves, also be conducting themselves at this moment?
In fact, that party also in Edo State did not sign the peace accord. That is a systemic failure. Again, there is what we call lacuna in law. This peace accord is not a function of law. It's a function of convenience, which we call a doctrine of necessity. So you are not mandated by any law to sign the peace accord. So whether you sign or not, you can proceed with the elections. And if we have painted our elections as having serious insecurity potentials, again, we have a systemic problem. Because I made reference to the US, when Donald Trump tried to do gree-gree, they even the judiciary and all of them said, no, we are not going to take this from you because we must protect the sanctity of our political system, governance system. Here, what? Is that the case in this country? So, if INEC is so empowered in terms of practice, they are empowered theoretically, and they also are seen to be above board, why not? You should be beyond influence. That is why it's called Independent National Electoral Commission. But to what extent
I'm afraid I
is
do
that
have to
commission
put you on
independent?
hold. Understand that we will have to go on break, and then we will return by 6 p.m. at top of the hour for more analysis and updates from Ondo State. Stay with us.
Now, those who